part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
You're listening to the Krypton Report.
Happy Halloween, James.
Happy Halloween, Tyler.
And happy Halloween to everybody. This is coming at you on Halloween. Ooh, we are recording a lot later. And hold on.
Hey guys.
What do you tell them? Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
And that was fun.
And one of you guys from other countries, Happy New
So,
Year.
what did you do for Halloween tonight, James?
I had to change a tire on my car,
Oh.
blow some leaves, and then went trick-or-treating.
All right. Did you dress up?
I have my Friday the 13th hockey jersey.
Okay. Lame, but okay. I'll let it go.
It's what I wore to work today, too.
Solomon dressed up as the Scarecrow. That's been his kind of continual costume this year. Sayla was the Phantom of the Opera. I was Superman. Jania was a witch. And, it's interesting because Jania and I, she just kind of threw something together. We were talking, and it's really cool because, our neighborhood is awesome for trick-or-treating. Just how the whole community comes together. It's a small town. And it's just a great place to trick-or-treat as a kid. Like, the kids got so much candy. I'll probably be eating it till Easter because we'll have Halloween, Christmas, then Easter candy. I'll just pass it out again next year. But, we were talking about Halloween traditions, and we kind of were talking with the kids where Halloween comes from as a holiday and everything. And, Jania was talking about how the Celtic and Gaelic calendar, that October 31st was basically New Year's Eve. Then November 1st was the start of the new year because that's when the seasons and stuff changed. They believe that part of their costumes and dressing up was whatever you dressed as or whatever would kind of manifest what you wanted to bring into the next year and what you wanted to be, so to speak. So I was like, yep, definitely dressing up as Superman. So I dug out my since Cavill returned with his Man of Steel costume, I dug out my little homemade Superman costume thing I made back in 2013. It's just kind of a fun little thing I did when I made my little movie. Very Smallville inspired. You know how everyone had like a jacket or like a hoodie type costume in Smallville?
Right.
Very inspired from that. So I was Superman walking around. Got a lot of good reactions from people. It was cool.
Good. I mean, I got a lot of comments on my jersey today.
They were like, so what team you play for? Are you goalie? You're like, no.
No, I got a lot of compliments on my Friday the 13th jersey today. A lot of people like it.
They were like,
that's pretty cool.
They're like, you're scary, sir. You're like, back up.
So,
you have no idea. You gotta back it up, kid.
Well, we had to wrangle the horde tonight to go out, so.
Yeah. I hear you.
But as usual, I knew the best place to go.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. There's a neighborhood we found a number of years ago. It was like, oh, yeah, this is a good one. And, I've never had a disappointing year going there.
James is the guy who drives like 3 blocks, 3 miles down the road to someone else's neighborhood, parks his car. Is like, all right, kids, trick or treat, go.
Well, I mean, something like that,
Oh no, I'm just playing. We've had to do that.
We drove a handful of miles out to the next town over. Well, because ours was yesterday at 3:30 to 5:30.
Yeah.
During daytime hours, and we missed most of it. Jimmy and Bella, they're about to be 13 and 14. They went out trick-or-treating by themselves because I had to go pick up Jamie because I was on call, so I needed the car. So I had to go back out and pick her up to come home, and so we only got to take the baby out for about half an hour, and it wasn't very lucrative. And then she fell and scraped her nose on the pavement, so she got a little scrape on her nose too. So we said, you know what, let's go out to the other one. Let's go out tonight, and go to where they're having it, which is the neighborhood I usually go to. And yep, it was a good time.
I mean that
We were out there for a good hour and a half.
that makes complete sense. Like, Halloween here it's a multi-day kind of thing because we took the kids to the trick or treat, the Boo at the zoo. Saturday, the one comic book store has a Halloween bash party that you dress up and they have games and activities. We didn't get to make it because of their soccer games and stuff like that. And then we always do downtown Circleville has a trick or treating for just the businesses. And then their school did trunk or treat. And there's so many little towns around here that do trick or treat on different nights, and they stagger it that you can, hit multiple times. And usually we hit another trunk or treat from my parents' church. And then today was our actual town, and we did a nice little family Halloween celebration. It was cool. It was a good day. It was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the pictures you guys posted to the chat. I was really so busy, from the time, because yesterday on the way home too, my tire shredded, so
Oh,
some of the outside came apart. So it's like lovely. So I had to drop 100 on a tire today.
well, poor Jania. Last year, she was working when they decided to post when they were actually doing trick or treat for our town. So she missed taking the kids trick or treating, and it rained the whole time. So we didn't get to, me and the kids did it, but we were all wet, and Jania didn't get to be part of it. So it was, my sister-in-law and father-in-law and her boyfriend passed out candy at our house. And me and Jania and my mother-in-law took the kids out around. So it was nice. It was a good family time. And then we had
Good.
hot apple cider
I'm
at
glad you
home
enjoyed it.
and everything. But that's our experience. So we're here to talk about Superboy and Halloween because I don't know about you, James, but I'm a big, when it comes to Halloween and stuff, I love the classic monsters. The werewolf being my favorite. What about you? What's your favorite?
Of the classic monsters, I would have to say werewolf is my favorite as well.
Yeah.
But you laid claim to that, so it's cool.
Next year.
I was to say I got the beard.
Yeah, you do. You're like Gimli if we were the Lord of the Rings. I'll be a hobbit, but we're here to talk about
Tallest hobbit I've ever seen.
I know that's what I joke with Jania, when we're watching Lord of the Rings stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm a hobbit, but I'm 6 feet tall. Hobbits are
just because your hairy feet.
I don't got no hair on my feet. I just like to stay. I'm just like a homebody who just wants to eat and do stuff at home and not be bothered and be happy.
Yeah,
that's what makes me a hobbit. But we're here to talk about Superboy season 2. There's 2 episodes that we're focusing on, and we skipped these when we were doing our look back. And I told James not to watch them because they really do work as a part 1 and part 2 storyline. And the first one is season 2, episode 4, Young Dracula. It came out October 28th, 1989. And the summary is Superboy and Lana get caught in the middle of a battle between 2 vampires. And we meet Byron Shelley, who is a doctor who is actually a vampire. Oh. James, what do you think?
Well, I thought your vampire impression there was just great.
Thank you. He is a vampire. That was my favorite part of this episode, when he's like in the car and the other vampire's turning it over and he's just like trying to like fang out.
Yeah. I mean, watching them back to back like that, it is one story. We got Byron in both. Um, I mean, it's interesting. You know what I mean? Like you got the vampire who's a doctor. Who doesn't want to hurt people.
I will.
Um,
So let's set this up. So the episode has this opening kind of incident where Clark and Andy are walking and they're talking and a metal rafter falls and Clark pushes Andy out of the way and he gets hit by it. And he has to play like he's hurt enough and they take him to the doctor and of course Byron's the doctor. And what I found interesting is when they hook Clark up to the machine to like do his x-ray and like they take off his glasses, Clark's just trying to hide his face so that Andy don't see. Is the sound effect for the machine sounds very like old monster style, like Frankenstein electrodes, very
Right.
and I thought that was kind of funny. And we also have the earlier scene where some dudes are trying to rob a store and Byron's there and they like shoot him and he doesn't get hurt and he does the like mind wipe of I was never here, you never saw me. Forget I was here.
Right. Yeah, it did have some of the of course some of the vampire tropes, the hypnotism and the raw attraction, um and then the vampire bites.
Oh, I just love like the raw attraction, like no woman can resist Byron Shelley. I do love the fact that um Byron after Lord Byron marries Shelley's husband and of course Shelley after Mary Shelley. But Byron Shelley was the poet. So I do think it's funny that that's who they chose for his name because it also reminds me, do you remember in Smallville where there was the guy Byron who was the poet who couldn't come out in the daylight because of some Luther Corp experiment, turned him like into a monster.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't connect the two.
so we have the doc, and then we find out there's another vampire that shows up that's very like Count Dracula-esque, but he's not Count Dracula. No. This is called Young Dracula, but the D word is never mentioned in this episode. So another vampire shows up and he's attacking Lana, and then Byron shows
Yeah,
up.
and he's very classic with the cape and the
medallion
in the middle, like yeah.
He looks like discount Peter Cushing as a vampire. Like if you were shopping for a Peter Cushing and you went to the Dollar Tree, this is the guy you would get. That's my take.
Yeah.
So Shelley, hits him with his car, whatever, saves Lana. Superboy shows up, and they take Byron back to his apartment, and he wakes up and he's like, "How did you know where I lived?" Superboy's like, the address was on your paycheck.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
And then when he's like, I looked at you and you have some sort of energy that defies science and everything. He's like, this energy makes me what I am. I will say the actor who played Byron, I actually really liked him. I thought he did really well. Like, everyone else is kind of so melodramatic, and I just feel like he did really well. Now, the first episode, okay, Young Dracula, the one we're talking about, was directed by our favorite director, David Nutter.
Ooh, nice.
For those listening who are like, what are you talking about, Tyler? David Nutter go on to direct the pilot for Smallville, as well as Supernatural, and many, many other things. I think he did The Flash as well. But he's a great director. But the actor that plays Kevin Bernhard played Dr. Byron Shelley. I just thought he did a really good job.
Yeah, I thought so. I think he kind of played like coming from that other world, that darker world,
Mm-hmm.
trying to be to be what he's doing, to be what he is, to be what he's doing, be a doctor, um, help people. Because that's what he does at the store when the people are robbing it too. So
We find out that that Byron is taking a serum. Reminds me of another vampire I know that keeps him at bay. It's trying to cure him, but it's not. Like we were saying, there's a scene where he like fangs out. But the part that I don't understand is when the other vampire that's come looking for him bites him. And they talk about he will be a vampire. I'm like, he's already a vampire. So being bitten by another vampire, how does that work?
yeah, that one was a little interesting.
I'm like, I think someone's got their story off. But yeah, that was weird. But I did appreciate.
Well, like he was like, there's no turning back now. Like, I mean, okay, so it was just like you're gonna make him more.
I feel like we could have fleshed out
I
this
don't know.
story more because, they talk about he was born like this. His father's blood. My father's blood is in me. It's cursed.
Well, he talks so slow, so like the exposition is dragged out longer than it needs to be, longer than it normally would.
And I really wish that these were part 1 and part 2 back-to-back stories, because watching them together really works. But what's the funniest part to this episode to me, okay? The funniest part, and it's so stupid, is at the end of the episode. Wait, we'll get there. Hold on. Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Byron and Superboy are walking down the road, and they're talking, and Byron's leaving town, and then Superboy leaves, and then Byron changes direction and starts walking back the way they just came.
Does he?
And then he starts thumbing. Like, it's such a weird, with the way the camera flips, he starts thumbing and gets picked up by a lady who cuts her finger and has a little bit of blood. But the other thing that's interesting is
that I saw.
Byron doesn't have a reflection, but if he concentrates hard enough, he can actually produce a reflection. I thought that was cool to the mythos. But we have the standard fog moving vampire, and this was my favorite part though. The vampire's attacking them in Byron's apartment. Superboy grabs him, just flies him into space. And the vampire is like, "Oh, the darkness is my power, blah, blah, blah. I will grow." And then he's like, "Not for long." And he turns, and there's the sun. And the vampire's just like, the sun. I was like,
yeah, that was hilarious.
I was like,
well, like he's like, you cannot or you cannot resist me.
And Superboy's like, "Yeah, watch this." So that's young Dracula. So like I said, it ends with Byron's got to move on. And then Run Dracula Run, season 2, episode 16. So we have a 10 episode gap. It was February of 90. And just for comparison, it has a 6.7 on IMDb, whereas Young Drac has a 6.3. And it's a 12 episode gap. My apologies. And it starts basically where Byron is jumped, and these druggies think that he has drugs, and they steal his serum. he calls Lana to tell Superboy he's losing control. Lana goes to investigate, and Byron actually becomes now the antagonist. He is the villain. He turns Lana, and he's got some great 80s clothes and pants and cowboy boots.
Right. Well, he in the first one he talks about a serum treating the vampirism like a disease. So with his serum, he can, like Blade, curb his bloodlust and like walk around in the day and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, and now he doesn't have it. So what's he gonna do? But
turn Lana.
Dun dun dun. And then Superboy tries to help her. They overpower him, and my favorite thing is like when they put Superboy in the coffin, and they like nail him into the coffin, and Byron reaches out to the because his father is coming for him. His father wants to meet him. He's been on the run from his father, and then we find out Superboy's faking it, and we get the cheese. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not a huge fan of just like the idea that the cross repels the vampire if you just cross two things together. Like Superboy takes two
Right.
pieces of pipe
Like,
and welds it as a cross, and the vampire's like, I'm like,
yeah. I mean, he does talk about how it's the will behind it that does it, but yeah, it usually has to be something that's sanctified,
or like
not just two things crossed.
in the movies they try to do like their fingers or whatever. I'm like, no, I prefer more of like an actual proportionate image of the crucifix, the cross, to work compared to just like anything being crossed. Just throw some math at them, like So I and then we have this. They're at this hangar, and Superboy. Andy shows up. Andy tries to go to the police. The police don't believe him. Of course not. And he shows up to help, and he goes after try to stop Lana. And Andy's got the serum, and they're in this hangar. And this jet shows up, and it's just kind of sitting there, And then the jet starts backing up with Superboy and his big cross, and he gives Byron the serum, and Byron starts to come back around as himself, and he's like, "Oh, Superboy, I'm sorry." And he's like, "It's okay, Byron." And he's like, "My serum will heal you both. You won't be vampires anymore."
Yeah, they've only been bit once.
He's like, "You've not fully turned." And then at the end, they're like, "Byron, who's your father?" And he's like, "The Prince of Darkness, Count Dracula."
As he walks out through
The hangar door
the massive hangar door
into the
that
unknown.
just opens up for him and closes behind him, and he just walks out into the dark, into the fog.
It really, I say that all jokingly because it really does feel like, was this 2 episodes that they split or something? Because like the first one's called Young Dracula. Okay, it was written by Carrie Bates, and writers were Carrie Bates and Elia Salkind. Okay, let's see if there's any more information here on writing. Nope, just Carrie Bates and Elia Salkind. Okay, now let's jump back to Run Dracula Run, because I feel like, first of all, the names suck, and then the writers were Carrie Bates and Elia Salkind. So I feel like maybe it was one story that they split into 2 or something, because it does work best as a 2-parter. I think if you took out a little bit here and there, you could make it a really good, strong 2-parter. Because the big reveal at the end of "Who's your father?" Count Dracula would be a lot bigger if the title wasn't Young Dracula or Run Dracula Run, and it's never mentioned Dracula. You know what I'm saying? In the episode to that final line.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was nice to see Superboy kind of up against the supernatural. Ooh, as we know, magic's a weakness, so it makes it more fun.
Yeah, it is. It is something that he does mention too in this. That the supernatural has a stronger effect on him.
Yep. So, but all right. Any other thoughts, James? Is our Halloween special on Superboy?
There's a lot of Batman and supernatural elements, and how many times have we seen Batman and Dracula,
Yeah.
So like just to have it kind of transferred over to Superman, those supernatural elements, the different forms of magic that he comes into contact with. It's I'm glad that you held off. You had me hold off on watching these, because you did tell me to skip them,
Yep.
and I kind of just did. You know what I mean? I didn't question. I was like, yeah, sure, fine. You know what I mean?
You're like, Tyler's not going to steer me wrong.
And I saw the title, I saw Young Dracula, and then coming up, a little while ago when I watched Brimstone, saw Run Dracula Run, saw the title of the episode. So, but if I had seen them like earlier, it'd have been like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm glad that I'm glad it was a two-parter. I'm glad that they brought that the same actor was back. It does. Yeah, I wonder what kind of behind the scenes it was. We know that when these shows are produced, like especially at the time, like they were filmed and then sometimes aired in different orders.
I'm going to tell you right now, I feel almost as if they filmed these two back to back or at the same time and then just cut them up and split them, because with the way the syndication and the way the shows work, having that actor guest star in 2 episodes spread out, I don't think would work for his schedule. I just call it a feeling.
Right. Very strong possibility, yeah. No, it was really cool. I was happy to watch this. It fit right into all the Halloween themed stuff that I've been watching all month long and longer. So, I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
It was an interesting couple of episodes. It was kind of funny though how we also had Lana biting Clark again. Like we know that from the vampire episode
Of Smallville?
of Smallville.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Where Lana's in the sorority and then she bites Clark.
I didn't watch that this year. Like it was usually I do as part of like my last week of Halloween, because it's actually a legit Halloween episode of Smallville and Superman and Halloween,
Yeah, when one of the very only times he wears a mask.
Yeah. It works. That is funny.
Because he almost never ever wears a mask in that show.
That was a good observation, James.
So yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, look at that.
All right. Well, hey, that's Halloween from us. Hope you guys had a great time, got lots of candy and treats, and we're safe. And remember,
have a happy and safe Halloween.
We're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find out all of our information. $1 a month. You'll get extra special content that you don't get on the main show, like movie commentaries and whatever else comes out of our mouths. So check it out, patreon.com/Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Hey everybody, this is a Halloween special for me on Superboy and the Werewolf. If anyone knows me, werewolf is my favorite mythological creature. The original Lon Chaney Wolfman is one of my favorite films. I loved a lot of what they did with the Benicio del Toro film in 2010. A few things I didn't like, but I love the look of that movie so much, and the score is amazing. So the wolf and werewolves have a soft spot in my heart for storytelling. Also, I've written my own werewolf movie. So getting a chance to do this episode was exciting. I held off on it, and I'm watching it. So here we go. I love the werewolves. I love the wolf. It's my other favorite is, of course, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, Wolfman, and Dracula, because I love Lon Chaney's version of Larry Talbot. So let's get into Superboy, and the werewolf. And I apologize because I am still fighting a cold. Thank you, fall in Ohio. Season 3, Superboy, episode 19, Werewolf, which ironically aired in February of 91. But the episode moves quick with a woman showing up with a VHS tape of catching a werewolf, and no one believes her, of course. They work for a bureau, which you would think they would. That's their job. But, of course, Clark goes with her, and they're investigating some guy she has an idea might be a werewolf. And the werewolf looks pretty cool, not gonna lie. A werewolf, for a TV budget at the time, it is kind of funny the werewolf shows up and Clark immediately spins around and becomes Superboy. But they're talking about like the different curse of the werewolf. We see the full moon, and Christina, who Clark's with, disappears. The werewolf shows up in what looks like manly clothes, but as we go through, we'll see where this takes us. Of course, Clark easily defeats the werewolf by having the werewolf fall over a silver letter opener knife, and it's the old man they believed it was. Episode very quick to move around. Here's my theory as we watch this. Christina is a werewolf. She was scratched as she set up. And interesting twist they're going to do. Operating in the 22-minute framework, the episode moves too quickly that we are, halfway through, which is 10 minutes. And we find out that Canaris, yes, was the werewolf. We find out that the girl is his assistant, and that she's the second werewolf that we predicted. Because we only got 20 minutes, and the episode just moves so quickly, and she's operating under the assumption that with him dead, she'll be cured. But, that's not true. And she's with Clark in a truck. But Clark's Superboy. So, do we fear anything? So, of course, the lore was off because, there's different versions of lore. And by killing the werewolf that bit you does not change your curse. It just happens. And Christina is now going to kill the one she loves. Well, who does she love? Clark, because she just met him like 10 minutes ago. But to get kind of meta, Clark went past us to Universal Studios
and he's taken her to Universal Studios, which is where I believe that Superboy filmed, was in Universal in Orlando, Florida. So it's kind of funny. And of course, when she shows up and she's turning into a werewolf, and I always think it's funny in these shows where the moon's been out for a while, then all of a sudden they turn. I always kind of thought it was like as the sun set and the moon rises, but whatever. And she pops out in her werewolf makeup, which is the exact same as the previous werewolf. So good stuff going on. And then meanwhile, the one agent from the Bureau is needing to go to a location to get basically a silver bullet made, which is kind of funny because being at the Bureau, and this is the thing that they kind of deal with, you'd think they'd have silver bullets around. I don't know, just thoughts. So then, of course, Superboy shows up, saves the day, and it's all great, right? It's all good. But it's funny because he doesn't save the day. He shows up and he kind of starts to put her... Looks like he's going to build a cage for the werewolf as she's running around Universal Studios. And then he changes back to Clark. And he tries to talk to her. And then the agent shows up with a silver bullet and shoots her in the back. Which they established earlier that Orlando's a long drive. He wouldn't have made it there in time. Only Superboy flying would have made him there in time. So the episode was okay. The werewolf effects and makeup was good for the time and TV budget and everything. And it was kind of fun. Nice little monster Superboy episodes. It got a 7.9 on IMDb. It's nothing great, nothing horrible, but just kind of cool that it exists. I kind of, as a writer, I think more about it, and it could have been better, especially with the character, but every one of these episodes kind of in their own pocket universe. For now, I was looking at season 4. It's a lot of two-parters. But Superboy werewolf. Interesting. If ghosts are more of your thing, there is an episode originally aired April 21st, 1990 in season 2 called The Haunting of Andy McAllister. Andy, Lana, and Clark drive to Andy's great uncle's mansion where he's asked them to spend the weekend. Because Andy can't read maps, they end up lost and only accidentally find the huge home, which makes no sense. Because it's a show and they have to create weird stuff, I guess. Once inside, everyone is impressed with the old mansion, and Andy tells them how his ancestors built the house when they were wealthy from selling rifles. The last 50 years, his distant relative was a sheriff out of the Old West, spent his entire fortune building more and more rooms onto the house, and for some reason was terrified that the outlaws he killed would return to haunt them. The home was full of secret passageways and trap doors. One of them, Clark falls through. Meanwhile, Andy playfully shoots an antique rifle, creating a mysterious rift into another dimensional plane, allowing evil spirits from the past to escape, including Billy the Kid, who plans to kill Andy as revenge for the imprisonment in the other dimension. It's fun. It's interesting. It's very much a play off the Winchester house. Spooky house. And if that's more of your Halloween thrill for Superboy, then check it out.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.